pop in on my way to work. I am actually driving to work right now. I have a night shift in the ER. And since I promised you all that I was going to discuss all of the self-harm content that's on Instagram, and because it's so important, even though I didn't have time today to sit down and do it at home, I figured I'd do it now. Now while driving the car is better than never. So this particular topic is near and dear to my heart, mainly because in the pediatric ER, we see a lot of kids come in with self-harming behavior and suicide attempts. It is very common to go have one or two children come into the ER with either cutting or overdosing as a suicide attempt, an attempted hanging, that kind of stuff, at least one or two per shift. That's not a surprising amount of kids to see. And the beauty of being in the pediatric ER is that as long as it's not crazy and there's not something really acute going on, you have the time to sit and talk to them the way, in a way that is not usually able, the primary care physicians are not usually able to do. So when you sit and you talk to them, obviously lots of other stuff's going on in their lives, but oftentimes a lot of it has to do with bullying and cyberbullying, issues on social media, feeling inadequate, depression and anxiety due to comparison, just so many things that I discuss when I'm discussing social media. So that's why it's kind of important to me to make sure that we understand how social media is affecting our kids that have a tendency to self-harm, or even get kids who don't normally or had never self-harm, never cut, anything like that, it can get them to do that. So Instagram has been one of the platforms that has been huge in causing an issue with kids being able to view self-harming content. They have taken a few extra steps recently to try to keep that content from being on their platform, but they're doing a terrible job, to be honest with you. So to back up just a little bit, on Instagram, a lot of stuff that kids will try to find is through hashtags, right? I mean, most of you that use Instagram put hashtags on your posts, and sometimes we'll use hashtags to search for similar posts or to search for things that you're looking for. And kids do the same thing, only they probably do it even more so than we do. And they're very good at figuring out what type of hashtags they need to find the content that they want to see. And oftentimes those hashtags are kept kind of secret from mainstream. Parents often don't know. Sometimes even the platform itself that they're using the hashtags on are a little slow to figure out what hashtags mean when they're using them. So so there's been stuff that's been coming out about secret societies within Instagram and how hashtags are used within those secret societies. And to Instagram's credit, once they realized that there were a good amount of secret societies for self-harm and pro-suicide content, they did start to try to pull a little bit more of that and try to block certain hashtags once they realized that they were used for that purpose. But there's also a good number of hashtags that they know are being used for self-harm content and pro-suicide content that they have not pulled, and that they simply put a warning over it that you have to click through to get to the post, but don't block the post themselves. And I've showed you that on one of my previous videos, how all you have to do is hit I still show pictures, and it brings you to all of the pictures. So that's what's happening with all this self-harm content. And the stuff that's on there is not benign by any means. You can find videos of people actually cutting themselves with razor blades and watching the blood drip off. You can find videos and photos of people burning themselves. Lots of memes about self-harming, lots of pictures of just razor blades with words over it, and lots of instruction on how to cut yourself what they believe to be appropriately, to where you're not necessarily going to kill yourself at that moment, although that's always a thought within these posts, but a way that you can cut yourself so that you will not kill yourself, but that you'll get the benefit of the cutting itself. Lots of instruction on that, lots of made up terms so that they can talk about cutting without people that don't know about cutting realizing what they're talking about. Like you'll see people talking about how to reach styro, as in styrofoam, and excuse me, styrofoam, and that is a description that they use to cut to a certain depth, where within the dermis you'll see a portion of the skin that looks like styrofoam. And so this is kind of how they work in there, and then they start to gather up into little groups, and they oftentimes claim that they're supporting each other in these groups, but it actually pulls people in further and further. And there's one particular very strong teen girl who has come forward and talked about how she got caught up in the secret societies of self-harm within Instagram and how she became obsessed with it. And I'll link that below after I do this live and get to work. I'll put that below because it's really telling about a girl who did not self-harm in the first place and started to find these types of posts on Instagram, and then became a became a cutter, and how she became obsessed because of all of the posts in there. So now to get to the important stuff so that you can really see what your kids are seeing. For those of you that have Instagram, and if you don't, I suggest you download it, as I always do for all of these apps, so that you can see for yourself. But go on into Instagram, and one of the big hashtags that I want you to search for is hashtag cutter, and you're going to spell it CUTTERRR. So there'll be 3 R's on cutter. When you search that, make sure you're looking under tags on Instagram and not accounts or people, because you're using it as a tag. So search it under tags. It's going to give you the warning to ask if you want to see the posts anyway, because they're concerning posts. You hit see posts anyway, and when you bring that up, what you will see will probably blow you away. You will see lots of photos of slit wrists, lots of jokes and memes about cutting, lots of posts about depression and suicidal ideation, and that's just one hashtag. It used to be cutter as in CUTTER. When they figured that one out, they added a second R. You can still search cutter with 2 R's, which will have a few self-harming posts, but because that one also became too popular and people were reporting those posts, they added a 3rd R, and so now it's CUTTERRR. Now that's just one. Another one that you can put in is hashtag secret society 123. That one for quite some time has been literally a secret society for self-harm and suicide, specifically cutting. And that one was found out, and so now it's used a little bit less. If you search that under tags, you'll see under that one secret society 123_, and that's what they end up doing with these hashtags. As soon as they start getting reported too much, they pick a different hashtag, and within that secret society they all know the hashtag, so they move over to that new hashtag, and that's how they find each other. And sometimes they use things that don't even make any sense to anybody. Like there was one that was hashtag Blythe, BLITHE. Once that one got blocked completely by Instagram, because Instagram does occasionally block the hashtag and remove it completely to where you can't search it. Once that one was blocked completely, they just flipped the word and spelled Blythe backwards. And so one of the things that I don't understand is that Instagram will sometimes completely block a hashtag so that kids who are searching it can no longer find that content. And sometimes they'll leave the hashtag and just put the warning. And I don't understand how they make that decision. And I also don't understand that if they know that these hashtags exist and they know that it's content that they say they're not going to allow, like self-harm and cutting and suicide posts, why not have somebody within Instagram that searches these hashtags regularly and then removes all of the graphic posts posts that are on there. Because again, when you go to #Cutter with 3 R's, you will be blown away. As soon as it pops up, you see blood and it's slitting of the wrists and all of that. So it's not like it's difficult for them to find. They know that it's there, but yet they leave it up. So our kids are seeing this. Now, 2 media stories that I am going to add to the post below in comments. One is the one that I already mentioned to you about the girl who did not have any self-harming behavior prior to becoming involved in these particular groups on Instagram. One is about her. The second one that I'm going to put on, which is a devastating story about a 14-year-old girl named Molly Russell. She lived in the UK, and in 2017 she got involved in the self-harm societies and groups within Instagram and started self-harming, and eventually died by suicide in 2017. She was 14 years old. This one, it's just such a heartbreaking story. Her father, whose name is Ian Russell, and again, I'll post the link to some of the stories down below. Ian Russell has been doing amazing things in the UK about self-harm content on social media platforms, most specifically on Instagram. And he's done such great things that now platforms are being held accountable in the UK. That is not happening here in the USA as of yet, although he's actually now coming to the United States. He's coming later on this year in a couple months, and I'm actually going to meet with him. We're going to speak. We've been talking to some legislators about helping us figure out a way that we could stop this information from getting to our kids, this content from getting to our kids, try and educate them about how this is affecting our kids, especially kids who might already be depressed or have anxiety, or sometimes who are already self-harming, and how this can make that thing worse. So the BBC from the UK and Ian Russell, who's Molly Russell's father, are going to be coming here. So that's going to be something that I'll be discussing over time, starting pretty soon once we start making these very specific plans to meet. But this is where you guys come in, to where you can help with this kind of information. So the more that you become outraged that this type of content is so easily accessible to your kids, the more people are going to listen. So when it's just 1 or 2 of us who are out here trying to make people listen, it's easily pushed aside by the people who really can make a difference. But when you have tons of parents who are saying, this is unacceptable, this is not something that I think anybody should be exposed to, because at this point, realistically, having such graphic self-harming content on very popular platforms, not only is it not good for kids, but let's be honest, it's not good for adults either. What adult really needs to watch posts of people slitting their wrists, or watch posts about people burning themselves, or discussing where's the best place for you to cut yourself so that nobody will see it? Like, nobody needs that. It's harmful to anybody, adults or children, across the board. It's something that doesn't need to be there. So I need you guys to be helping me by spreading these videos that I'm doing, the posts that I'm doing, just random things that you see that have to do with this. Make sure you're splashing it all over social media. Make sure that you're getting other people to share it so that we can have a bigger voice. I'm going to need lots of your help once Ian Russell comes over here and we start doing some stuff here, because the more people that we have on board for that, the better. And specifically, if any of you guys out there know of any child who has been affected by the self-harm material or pro-suicide material on Instagram, on any platform, but especially if it's been on Instagram, please contact me. You can PM me or email me at drhess, drhess at pdmom.com, because Ian Russell, the one who lost his child, really wants to talk to some other family members who understand what he's going through and who might want to take part in trying to create change around this. So if you know of somebody, or you yourself think that you might be able to help in this regard, message me. I will keep everything confidential until you give me the okay not to. They are going to want to be able to speak to you publicly if they can, but they themselves are also willing to keep it confidential if that's something that you choose. But we really need some other families on board who have had specific issues with this particular topic. Okay, so I am almost to work, and I'm going to sign off. I'm sorry I haven't been looking at the camera, but I'm trying to look at the road. You know, my thing's safety. I can't really do something unsafe. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? Okay, so I will, as soon as I get to work, so give me about like 15 minutes to get settled in the ER. As soon as I get in there, I will post the news stories about Molly Russell and the other teen girl below. I'll also post some studies that have been done surrounding the viewing of self-harm and pro-suicide content and how that affects teens and preteens. It's a very big deal, especially being that suicide is now the #2 leading cause of death in individuals from the ages of 10 to 24 years old. The second leading cause of death. That is absolutely unacceptable. Okay, so keep your kids out of the ER. Hopefully I'll have an okay night because kids will be safe and healthy tonight and not seeing me. I hope you guys have a good night and are prepping for a good week this week. Have a good night. Bye, guys.